Welcome to the Find Your Exit podcast. We're the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing companies. Michelle Seiler Tucker is dedicated to helping you find the path to retire rich and move on to your next adventure by exiting your business for the desired dream price you deserve. Get ready to find your exit with your host, Michelle Seiler Tucker.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Exit Rich. Today, we're going to discuss the top mistakes that business owners make in their business. Entrepreneurs make mistakes all the time. So let's learn about those mistakes and how we can avoid the pitfalls. One of the number one mistakes that business owners make is they never plan their exit. They really never think about selling until they have to due to a catastrophic event occurring, whether that's internal or external. Sellers will call me all the time because of health issues, partner disputes, divorce. And then right now we have coronavirus, we have fires, we have hurricanes, we have all types of different catastrophic events. Now, this is really the worst time to sell your business because your business is typically trending downward when a catastrophic event occurs. The best time to sell your business is when your business is doing well and trending upwards. However, I understand if you are facing a catastrophic event right now, then you may need to sell your business. And it's better to sell it now, even if it's trending downward, to avoid selling for pennies on a dollar, closing your doors, or even worse, having to file bankruptcy. But in a perfect world, we would like to sell when your business is doing well and trending upward. So that is really the biggest mistake that business owners make is they don't plan their exit. They don't think about selling until they have to. And it's really important to plan your exit from day one of starting your business or buying a business. And in Exit Rich, we talk about the Seiler Tucker GPS exit model. Plus, we have an episode that we filmed on our Exit Rich podcast. The second most biggest mistake that I see owners doing is that they get stuck in their business. And many business owners have created a glorified job in which they go to work for every day, rather a business that works for them. And they really haven't created the business with all the systems, and we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. But it's really important to create a business that works for you and get yourself out of the business. You need to work on the business, not in the business. Because here's the bottom line. If you're so involved in the business in the day-to-days, then it's going to be very difficult for us to sell your business because when we take you out of the business, there is no business. And then number three is owners don't really run the business on all six cylinders on what I call all Seiler Tucker 6 Ps. So let's talk about those Ps. So number one is people. Just like I said a minute ago, business owners have created a job that works for them rather than a business that works for them. A job that they go to work for rather than a business that works for them. So it's very important to create a business with a team. You don't build a business, you build people, and the people build the business. So it's imperative to have employees. Hire people that are smarter than you. Hire those core competencies that you don't possess. Let's face it, we're visionaries. Entrepreneurs are visionaries. A lot of entrepreneurs need what I'll call integrators. Those operation managers that can go out and integrate. So you really need to make sure that you have tenured people, have a management team in place, and then you really need to know the difference in your business between hiring W-2s and hiring 1099s. Most businesses should have W-2s. However, one of the biggest mistakes that I see are businesses like manufacturing, distribution, industrial staffing businesses. They have hired 1099s instead of W-2s. Yes, you heard me correctly. I know it's hard to believe, but I have a manufacturing plant right now that has over 100 1099s, not W-2s. And heaven forbid, if there's a catastrophic event that occurs, that owner could lose everything because these 1099s are not covered by workers' comp. In addition, the buyer is going to come in and calculate how much it's going to cost to convert 100 1099s over to 100 W-2s, that's going to decrease the EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, which will, guess what? It will decrease your purchase price. So it's very important to know when, and you know what? These owners know. They know that they should be hiring W-2s and not 1099s, but they're trying to save a penny. And guess what? When you try to save a penny, it could cost you a fortune. We also have a distribution company that we're working with right now that has 50 1099s working in a warehouse, packaging and shipping. Guess what? If they have a catastrophic event, they too can be out of business because they might not have the financial wherewithal to be able to fight and handle the lawsuits that will come their way from having 1099s employed versus W-2s. And again, it's going to reduce the sales price. So most companies need to have W-2s. When can you have 1099s? If you are in construction and you have subcontractors, if you're a flooring company and you have installers, if you're a real estate brokerage firm and you have real estate agents. But there's all these types of rules and regulations to define the difference and define what a 1099 is, and you need to follow those rules and regulations, okay? So it's very, very important. So again, just to recap, create a business that has people, because here's the bottom line. If you're a physician, and this happens to me all the time, where doctors will call me, doctors, chiropractic, dentist, will call me up and say, Michelle, I want to sell my business. Great. How many associates do you have? I don't have any. Here's the problem. You cannot sell a medical practice if there's only one doctor, because by the time I take that physician out of the practice, there is no practice anymore. Now, that does not mean I can't ever sell it, because everything's possible. However, you're going to have to stay in the business for 1 to 2 to 3 years to ensure a smooth transition. And the purchase price will be based upon you staying on for those 1 to 3 years, because buyers will want to mitigate their risk. Same thing with dentists. I have a dentist that wants to sell right now and he has no associates. And it's the same issue. He needs to stay on for 1 to 3 years, otherwise we can't sell their business. So when you're a sole practitioner and you don't have other licensed professionals in your organization, it's very difficult to sell your business. Not impossible, because nothing's impossible, but it's difficult. So make sure that you have people. And if you're in a licensed profession, you have to make sure that you have the associates. If you're a pharmacy, you need to have other pharmacists if you're the only pharmacist trying to sell. If you're a medical practice, you have to have other physicians. We're selling a chiropractic clinic right now. They're in good shape because they have 3 other chiropractors in their office. So just make sure you have people, because buyers want to buy a business, not a job. The second P is product. And here's where I see a lot of business owners make mistakes, because many business owners are in an industry that's dying, not thriving. So you really have to look at your industry and ask yourself, is my industry thriving or is it dying? And that answer is probably different now than it was before COVID, because many industries that were thriving before COVID are now dying. And just the opposite, many industries that were dying are now thriving. Manufacturing is thriving right now. So you really have to look at your industry and find out, is it thriving or is it dying? And if you're in an industry that's dying, then you need to innovate and you need to market. And first of all, before you innovate and market, you got to ask yourself, what business are you in right now? And what business should you be in? What business are you in and what business should you be in? You need to ask your clients, what do you need from me right now? What do you want? How can I make it easier for you to do business? Because I will guarantee that the company that makes it easiest for the consumer to do business with them is the company that's winning. Amazon is winning because they make it very easy for you to do business with them. You can be anywhere, order whatever you want, And in most cases, if you're on Prime, you can get that sent to you within 2 days. So ask yourself, what business are you in? What business should you be in? Now, let me give you a quick example, and you've probably heard me say this before, but Steve Jobs came back to Apple and he asked, what business are we in? And they said, we're in the computer business. He said, no, what business are we in? And they all said, we're in the computer business. He said, no, we are in the communication business. The communication business. No matter where you are, you have one of these in your pocket. You have an iPhone. We have an iPad. We have an iPod. We have the iCloud. We have the I. That one question alone about what business are we in, what business should we be in, catapult Apple to the next level to where their brand is, I think they're like a $200 billion brand now because of that one question. So you have to pivot. The name of the game right now is pivoting, because the business you were in before COVID might not be the business you should be in right now. And not only before COVID, but remember this key fact. It used to be that 85 to 95% of all businesses would go out of business in the first 1 to 5 years. Startups were at risk. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now it's only 30% of those businesses will go out of business. But listen to this. Here's the most important fact to know. That out of 27.6 million businesses that have been in business for 6 years or longer, those businesses for 10 years or longer, 10 years or longer, those businesses will go out of business. So if you have been in business for 10 years or longer, you're at big risk for going out of business right now. And it's because of this right here, your product, and asking your customers, what do you want? What do you need? How can I make it easier for you to do business with me? What business am I in? What business should I be in? And pivoting. So that's right there is why businesses go out of business, is because business owners become complacent like Blockbuster did. Blockbuster was so complacent. Netflix came, the writing was on the wall. Blockbuster could have innovated. They did nothing. And look what happened. Blockbuster is now out of business. And I can tell you story after story after story to illustrate this point. So very important. What business are you in? What business should you be in? What do your customers need? What do they want? How can you make it easier to do business with them? And aim. Always innovate and market. Always innovate and market. So here's the third P out of the Seiler Tucker 6 Ps, and where I see many, many, many business owners make mistakes, and that's in process. And many business owners, we focus on marketing. We focus on making sure we get clients. We focus on making sure, that we have money to pay bills and, invoicing, etc. But one of the things that most business owners tend to overlook is the process. And when I design the process, many business owners do not design the process with the customer experience in mind. And again, this is a competitive space. You have competitors. Whoever makes it easiest for the consumer to do business with them is the company that's going to win. Whoever makes the experience the most enjoyable, the most pleasant, easy, whoever delivers a wow experience to the client, seamless, is the company that's going to win. So I encourage all of you to look at your process and go back and see, has it been designed with the customer experience in mind? Is it designed to create wow experiences? Is it designed to stand out in a customer's mind? So if it's not, you need to work on that. And most importantly, where I see business owners fail is they stop documenting it. They don't document their processes. Yes, they might have an operations manual here or there, but they don't really have employee handbooks. They don't really have an operation/training manual with SOPs for every department. It's imperative to have all your processes documented in SOP flowcharts, in operation manuals, employee handbooks, and make sure that your employees are trained on such, so that if you have to replace someone in the department, they can read the SOPs and bingo, they know what to do. Look at McDonald's. McDonald's is probably one of the best well-known brands in the world. And what are they known for? They're not known for the best food. They're not known for the best experience, really. They're known to have the best systems, the best processes, because no matter where you go to McDonald's, whether it's in Paris or China or America, guess what? They all have the same experience. My experience in China is pretty much my experience here in America. Yes, it might look and feel a little bit different, but the experience is the same. Because McDonald's, the McDonald's brothers, before Ray Crockett got involved, went out to an empty tennis court and laid out their processes. They spent hours on a tennis court figuring out who's going to take the order, who's going to heat the buns, who's going to cook the patties, who's going to put the mustard, lettuce, pickle on the bun, who's going to hand the bag to the client. They figured this process out with the customer experience in mind, and they built a multi-billion-dollar corporation of their processes. This is where I see most business owners make the biggest mistakes, is not having processes in place. And this is what will cause you to lose profits, probably more than any of the other P's. So go back and define your processes, because again, this is one of the biggest mistakes and probably one of the most undervalued, because most M&A advisors don't know how to put a value on processes, but I do. So next, let's talk about the fourth P, which is proprietary. So I see lots of business owners making mistakes here. Proprietary is huge and probably one of the biggest value drivers there is. And we'll talk about why it's such a big value driver. And I'm not going to get into all the pillars of proprietary, because I'll talk about that in another episode. But one of the number one mistakes that I see companies make is they get a state, when they register their company name, they don't get a federal trademark because they never think big. They just get a trademark in their city and state, in their state, but they don't get a federal trademark. This has cost business owners tremendously. I have seen business owners lose a tremendous amount of money because they have been forced in court to defend their company name because they never did the research to make sure that their name is available from a federal standpoint, not just a local standpoint. So very important. I encourage all of you right now to make sure that your name, A, is available, and B, get a federal trademark. It's worth it. It doesn't cost that much. And it can save you a tremendous amount of money trying to defend your company name. Can you imagine if you had to change your company name after being in business 5, 10, 15, 20 years? This is huge. And one of the biggest mistakes I see. One of the other big mistakes is that companies use slogans and they don't trademark it. They don't trademark the logo. So if you are starting a business and you're trying to figure out what to name your company, come up with something that's nondescript, because it's easier to get a federal trademark for something that's nondescript. Cookie Bouquet, who had several franchises, I think all throughout the United States, had to change their name because of trademark infringement. because it was Cookie Bouquet was too normal. So it's always good to get a name that's nondescript and then explain what you do in your slogan, like Nike, just do it. So trademark your logos as well. Trademark your slogans. Also patents. If you've got some, if you got a proprietary idea, get a patent on that idea. So I see a lot of business owners do not protect their IP, their intellectual property, by getting trademarks. They don't get patents. This is huge. One of the other big mistakes I see is that business owners don't have contracts, or if they do have contracts, they're not transferable. Let me tell you, it's extremely important for you to have contracts. And I have a manufacturing business I'm working with right now. They have one manufacturing plant they work with. They have no contract with them. They're in Canada. So if this manufacturing company falls through, there is no contract and there is no backup plan. That's very scary. And most buyers will not buy that business because there's no protection and there's huge risk. So make sure you have a contract. If you're in manufacturing, have contracts. If you're in distribution, have contracts. Try to make sure those contracts are transferable. 99.9% of business owners never have the transferability clause in their contracts. Here's the biggest thing: client contracts. Client contracts add huge value. But again, 99.9% of business owners never ever have that transferability clause in their client agreements. We sold a medical transportation company that had 150 contracts. 99.9% of all sales are asset sales, not stock sales. Therefore, the contracts will not transfer over. And I had told the seller, go back out to all your hospitals, your doctors, your nursing homes, get those contracts transferable, add that transferability clause in each one of your agreements. Okay, Michelle, I'm doing it. Guess what? Did he do it? Of course not. So I bought him a buyer. It was an asset sale, went through due diligence, didn't do anything I told him to do, even though he told me he did. Contracts were not transferable. 9 times out of 10, this deal would have fallen apart. The deal would have been dead because buyers do not like stock sales. They like asset sales. Luckily for me, I had a great relationship with the buyer and I was able to get him to do a stock sale. Otherwise, this deal was dead. So if you're not listening to anything I say, which you should be listening to everything I say, make sure you add a transferability clause to your agreements. Agreements add huge value, whether it's a manufacturing agreement or distribution agreement or vendor agreement. If you have some exclusivity with a distributor, that adds huge value. But let me tell you what adds the most value. The most value is client contracts. And the more client agreements you have, the more money I can get you for your business. But you have to have that transferability clause. So let's talk about the 5th P, Patreons. Patreons, your client base. So a lot of business owners make the mistake of having customer concentration. They don't mean to. It's a golden rule. 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients. Here's the bottom line. You have to have customer diversification. Now, if you don't, it doesn't mean I can't sell your business. It just means I have to find the right buyer. We once sold a manufacturing business that that was specialized in the oil industry. And they had 60%, 65% of their business was tied up with BP, a BP contract. Contract was not transferable. We had about 550 buyers for this particular business. And we had probably about 12 different LOIs. LOI is a letter of intent. We had one specific buyer that was a strategic buyer. And this buyer had a similar product, similar services, had been trying to get into BP for years and years and years and could never get in. They were willing to outbid everybody else because they wanted BP. So they end up paying 65% more than what the business appraised for because they wanted that relationship. However, most buyers see that as a risk and they will walk away from that type of business. Most buyers want customer diversification, not customer concentration. So you really want to make sure that you have a diverse customer base and that your customers are not aging out. If you've been in business for 40, 50 years, how old are your customers? So you really want to have diverse, not just diverse as far as percentage-wise, concentration-wise, but, female, male, what's the age? Go after the younger generation as well, because some companies age out and they really don't have a client base, okay? So let's talk about the last P, where I see many business owners make mistakes, sometimes huge mistakes. And this is profits. We're all in business to make money, right? We're all in business to make a profit. You'd be surprised. And I tell you, I've been in this industry for over 20 years, but it still surprises me how I always thought, oh, this industry must make a lot of money, or that industry makes a lot of money, and they really don't make any money at all. But here's the deal. You have to know your numbers, okay? You have to know your operating cost. What's your gross revenue? What's your cost of goods? You have to know your numbers. And are your numbers trending up? Are your numbers trending down? And what is your profit margin for your industry? You should know your industry average profit margin. And you should know if your company is making money. So many business owners have been so used to running personal expenses through the business. I get it. But they forget what they're making in the business. You need to know what you're running through the business, what your non-recurring is. Non-recurring means that, you just hired a software developer, cost you $300,000 to do that, and you spread it over 2 years, $150 a year. That's non-recurring. You don't do that every year. Or you own the building and you have to replace the roof. It costs you $75,000. You don't do that every year. Or if you're living out of your business and running personal expenses through the business, you need to know your numbers. You'd be surprised how many companies don't know their numbers. I would tell you, pretty much everyone we talk to, whether it's a small company or a large company, they're like, oh, Michelle, my EBITDA is $10 million a year, and EBITDA is $5 million a year. So you really have to know your numbers. The other big mistake I see business owners make when it comes to profits is they don't have checks and balances, meaning that embezzlement is huge. And I can't even begin to tell you how many clients I have seen suffer embezzlement because they didn't have checks and balances. They weren't inspecting what they expect. They were trusting but not verifying. Always verify. Always have checks and balances when it comes to money. Always know where your money is going, okay? And the other thing I always say about profits is if you have a lack of profits, if you're not making money, profits is never, ever the problem. It's always a symptom of not running on one of the 6 Ps. You will have lack of profits if you don't have the right people in the right seats. And we're going to have a whole episode on people. But if you don't have the right people in your company, or if you're doing everything yourself, you will have a problem with profits. If your product is on the way out instead of on the way up, and you don't have as many consumers purchasing your products and services, guess what? You're going to have a decrease in profits. If your processes are not efficient and productive, and there's waste, you're going to have a lack of profits. You're going to lose money. If you haven't protected your IP, and if you have to go to court to fight for your company name, for trademark infringement, then you will have a problem with profits if you have not protected your IP. And if you have customer concentration, you lose a client. I once had an advertising company I talked about before. They have 5 clients, 5. They specialized in doing marketing for casinos. Guess what? During the evaluation and the sales process, out of their 5 clients, they lost 5 casinos, they lost 2. They were at risk for going out of business. They were losing huge profits because they had huge overhead. They had to have the best talent in marketing in order to service those casinos. So they couldn't get rid of people. So they still had huge overhead, but didn't have the money coming in because they lost 2 clients. Lack of profits, right? So profits is never, ever the problem, always the symptom. It could be a symptom of lack of processes, lack of checks and balances, that somebody's stealing from you. I once was doing due diligence on a business that we were selling and found out that the company's internal CPA was taking money. So these are some of the mistakes that business owners make. There are so many more. One of the big things that I see business owners make is that they don't protect their corporate structure. And unfortunately, when a business fails or has to sell for pennies on the dollar or file bankruptcy, they don't just lose their business assets, they lose their personal assets too. And that's because they pierced the corporate veil. They commingled their business assets and their family assets by signing personal guarantees, by taking out a mortgage on their house to support the business. So you want to make sure that your corporate structure is protected. I always say you don't know what you don't know. So hire the experts. Have a good CPA, have a good attorney. I will tell you that I've seen business owners, buy real estate and put it in their personal name, corporate real estate that the business operates, and put the real estate in their personal name. That's not a good idea. If there's a lawsuit that happens, now they can sue you personally. So you want to make sure that you have the right corporate structure in which to protect your personal assets. Okay, like I said, there's a lot more mistakes I could talk about, but I think this is enough for now. So the key is plan your exit, plan it early. Don't sell because you have to due to a catastrophic event. Sell because you want to and you've planned your exit the Seiler Tucker way. And also remember to build your business on all 6 Ps so the business works for you rather than you working for it. So this has been another episode of Exit Rich. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for listening to the Find Your Exit podcast. Don't forget to check out Michelle Seiler Tucker's Build to Sell Blueprint books and Exit Rich, along with more blogs, videos, and resources at findyourexit.org. Be sure to connect with Michelle on Facebook or LinkedIn and stay tuned for her next episode by subscribing in your favorite podcast player.